Let's get you more on that story. Bring in Leeto Nthoba, political analyst and lecturer at the Central University of Technology in the Free State. Good to have you on the program, Leeto. So the ANC then saying it remains committed to trying to save the relationship with the SACP and convince it not to contest the upcoming elections independently. Why do you think the ANC is still so married to the idea of a tripartite alliance that stands together on all three legs during elections especially?
Well, remember that the tripartite alliance allowed the ANC very early on in the politics of South Africa to consolidate power, not just in the circles where the ANC finds itself and how it permeates society, but in the minds of the South African communists, in the South African Communist Party, and then lastly, in the hearts and minds of workers. And this alliance, remember, was solidified around 2008, 2009, during which the time where dual membership was pushed very hard by the likes of Leeto Nthoba in order for there to be no distinction between an ANC member and an SACP member. And so that then became the time at which this calamity started to actually break apart, because then the SACP threw in its lot totally with the ANC and lended its full attention and motives to the ANC and how it's moving the country. Mm-hmm. I think chronologically, just in a second point, from there, the demise started with the ejection of NUMSA and how it was treated throughout the tripartite alliance and its exit with Irvin Jim. And I think that was where the boat started to get rocked and the fears of what the tripartite alliance means to ANC leaders. And I think that precipitation, we're starting to see the rain from that.
And is the marriage then, at least between the ANC and the SACP, one that is still worth saving? Or is it an unhappy union where the two people are basically holding on to the memories of old? Where do the ideals, the values that glued them together, especially in a post-democratic South Africa, do they exist today?
To borrow from our street talk, that the third party is the problem here, right? We have in the GNU the entry of the DA in the politics of the tripartite alliance. Now, if you think about it, in the broader perspective of the picture, in actual fact, the DA has fully lended itself to opposing everything the SACP stands for with its pro-poor policies, and almost every other policy it has tried to introduce through the tripartite alliance. The DA has vehemently stood against that. And so if you think about it, the SACP and the DA are almost diametrically opposed in what they believe the direction of South Africa should be. Mm-hmm. And so if then you bring in the DA in the GNU, that was the first question then that brought this camel whose back is starting to break. This is what we are seeing, is that the question of the DA. So where do we stand as the SACP if John Steenhuisen, for instance, is a minister of the parliament that the ANC is in as well?
But it's interesting, if we're going to stay with the marriage analogy, because what the SACP here is proposing is not a divorce from the ANC, right? It wants to be able to challenge it at the ballot box, but still be able to forge ahead with some of the benefits that come from being a member of the tripartite alliance. So in essence, it's one partner seeking an open marriage, for want of a better analogy, correct? But can that be done in a way that is effective and beneficial to both?
Exactly. You and the chief whip of the African National Congress have the same question in mind, right? A week ago in the Eastern Cape, he posed this question to an Imbizo, where he asked, can the SACP running coexist with the ANC? And he takes the good example of Buti Manamela. He says, Buti Manamela is a member of the ANC cabinet in parliament. And so can the ANC willingly allow Buti to go and campaign for the SACP in a bid to go and win against the ANC? And what does that mean for the ANC candidate, who then loses an election at the behest of Buti Manamela, who then sits in parliament for the ANC? And then how does he come back to the ANC and sit in parliament again? And that becomes the question. And then the second question he asks is that, what if then their ambitions move away from just the local government elections into the national picture? And so how do we allow Leeto Nthoba to stay in cabinet, but then go and campaign for the SACP, or even the president to compete against the president of the ANC with an SACP president. And what does that mean for the alliance, even if the SACP wins? And I think those questions are the ones that are creating the fractures, and even the place where they can't find themselves in this bilateral talks that they're having.
Regarding the fractures, we got a sense of what's going on within the SACP, right? When Leeto Nthoba, one of the most prominent people in the organization, wrote quite publicly about why he thinks the SACP should reconsider its position on this matter. He was then quickly shot down by others in the organization. But do we have a clear enough sense of how united the SACP membership leadership is in terms of going it alone, at least electorally?
And so this is what an ANC member or a Marxist-Leninist would call the lack of discipline for party members, right? In which democratic centralism, which for the most part is an unnatural human state, that even if I lose to Thembekile right now, I must defer my views that I strongly held to the views that Thembekile holds because he won the election. And so that then becomes the greatest contestation, is that remember that Solima Paile's predecessor is Leeto Nthoba, and he had a different conception of what the tripartite alliance should be. And thus him writing that open letter to the SACP means that he's trying to usurp the power, or in the eyes of the SACP, to usurp the power of the current Secretary General. And then that leads to a cascading effect then to say, what is democratic centralism today within the whole tripartite alliance, whether it's ANC, whether it's SACP? And so if I am an individual member, especially of a high caliber and hold a high constituency, can I then still question democratic centralism and how it operates within the party? And I think that is going to be a question that they have to answer. And going forward, that is going to be probably the albatross around the ANC's neck, is that should I keep accepting democratic centralism, or would I then opt into making a MK, a COPE? And so those are the people who didn't respect it. And now the question in the SACP is, Leeto Nthoba, are you one of those people who don't respect the centralism, and where do you belong in that case?
Leeto Nthoba, good to talk to you. Political analyst and lecturer at the Central University of Technology in the Free State. Thank you so much for your time on the SABC.